sehe ja überhaupt nicht, was passiert, oder?
Nein, warte mal.
Das ist ja richtig kacke.
Warte mal, wir sind jetzt live. Hi guys.
Hey guys.
Now we're live on YouTube. So bear with us, guys. We are here on Zoom, Max and I, and you see us on the YouTube live. And yeah, welcome everyone. We're very happy to have you. We have a moderator on YouTube that will take all your questions. So if you have any questions, please ask them, and we will answer them when the time comes. So when Max says that it's time for answering questions, we will answer your questions. I will just read them and then Max can answer. So short introductions. I'm Maria from Ecolens. I'm the founder of Ecolens. And we are a training and recruitment platform that helps everyone that wants to work in blockchain get a job, get the proper training to get a job, and get connected to companies and get a job in blockchain. And I have a guest tonight, Max, who is an expert on tokenomics. And I'm super happy that he took the time to do this workshop with us and explain to us what is tokenomics and how we can analyze tokens. Max, I will say just a few words about you because I think it's very impressive that you have already worked for, in a blockchain term, a very long time in this tokenomics space. You're also a core contributor to the Tokenomics DAO. He has his own podcast where he's speaking to blockchain experts. And yeah, he's also a tokenomics expert and yeah, consulting companies on all topics around tokenomics. So yeah, Max, please, yeah, you can also say a few words about yourself, and I'm looking forward to seeing your presentation and your workshop.
Awesome. Sounds great. Yeah, so I'm Max. So today we're not going to look that much at how to build tokenomics, but we're going to look at how to analyze them. So I'm going to give you a quick introduction to what tokenomics is and why it matters. And after that, we're going to go into how to analyze them. And I brought a tool with you, with me, as a tool I developed. It's a form you can use to evaluate token ecosystems really like super in depth. Yeah. So the thing is like tokenomics obviously is like, usually people define it as like it's the economics of token ecosystems. It's kind of like a rounded definition. It's really kind of useless in the end. So I brought in my own definition, and it's a bit, I would say it's a bit scientific, but bear with me, you're gonna understand why it matters. So one thing is really, in a decentralized ecosystem, you don't have anyone calling the shots. So like in a decentralized platform like Airbnb, you have a company that designs the rules, defines the rules, and they define really what you can do in their ecosystem. In a decentralized ecosystem, that's not the case. And since there's nobody really setting strict rules and also enforcing them, you need to find a different mechanism to get people basically to do what you want, to create value, to develop something, to invest in something. So I made this quite technical, I would say, academic definition that is like, it's the science how to coordinate actors. So in tokenomics, you want to coordinate lots of people to do something. So you coordinate users, actors, investors. They can have a lot of personas in a decentralized ecosystem without a platform, without a really big platform, through incentive design and incentives and rewards. So in the end, we have a token that can be used to reward users to do something. It's fairly simple, and you quickly gonna see how that's going to work out and what we have to do. So I brought this image basically. So it's the Helium platform. Many of you might know it. It's a large network of Wi-Fi and antennas and 5G antennas, and they really try to build this massive decentralized Wi-Fi and network coverage network where you can, in the end, probably in the future, you and I, we can go out with our phones and we have a Helium mobile phone plan because the coverage is so big. And you can see this here in Europe. It's just insane, right? There's like in Portugal and Spain and in Germany, it's huge, and in the Netherlands and the UK. So the question really is like, how on earth did they achieve this? Because Helium, there is a company, it's certainly a bit centralized and stuff, but in the end, they made it possible to coordinate and to incentivize millions of people around the world to create this huge network. And you will see in a second that there's more than just, antenna providers or like network coverage providers. So how on earth do you get these millions of people? And probably, I don't know if it's like in the US, it looks similar to this. So maybe it's already billions of hotspots that, provide coverage. How on earth does that work? And I mean, if somebody of you know already what this is about, you can write this into the chat. So the Helium network, in a sense, has like 4 main user groups. It's like the hotspots providers. That's people like you and me. We buy a hotspot, an antenna, we put them into our homes, connect them to the internet, and they spread network coverage. That's validators. So people that secure the network, that validate that the hotspot providers actually provide the network they claim that they provide. There's devices and there's developers. So there's developers that can build on the Helium network and devices that can connect to the Helium network. It's a bit simplified. You can check it out and read the white paper. But the question is now really like, how do you get all of these people coordinated to build this massive network? Like you have 4 user groups with hundreds of thousands of members. Probably there's less developers than hotspot providers, and in the future there will probably hotspot providers, validators, and devices will by far the biggest groups. But like, how do you get 4 different groups to organize and coordinate what they build here? Easy. Or not easy, but you can imagine now, and it's through tokenomics. So tokenomics, we really need to think about how can we incentivize those 4 groups so that they work together in one ecosystem that makes sense. And that's super difficult. It's crazy. But in the end, it's also not that difficult. Like once you kind of realize the fundamental principles of tokenomics, it makes a lot of sense. So in the end, the Helium networks is just like there is a token. There's actually 2 tokens, but one is the main token. And through rewards and the right incentives and punishments, obviously, you can align the hotspot providers working together with the validators, working together with devices. Potentially, this part is not really happening. And there's core developers you can also reward and remunerate to work on your network. So it's possible through tokenomics and through using a token to go from these, where they don't work together and are separate, to this. And this is really like, I think an amazing achievement, and maybe the best example here. If somebody has questions, I would answer them. I'm going to look at the chat, but what I want to come now, since you understood now what tokenomics is, so it's the science of using incentives, token incentives, to coordinate people to do something, co-invest, co-create, I don't know, co-provide like this decentralized infrastructure. We want to look at, but how do you find out what are like good tokens to invest in? And so you kind of know how it works now. And the question is now, how do you analyze something and figure out if it works? So, and I developed a tool that has 9 dimensions. I think it's 9. Yeah, it's still 9. And you can use them to analyze token ecosystems based on the value they create, how they function. And it's really a first principles approach. It's like the ecosystem evaluation, and we're going to see that in a second, goes from analyzing participants, analyzing how value is created, how it's distributed, and so on, to token design, like what tokens are in the system, how can you use them, how do they rise in value, and yeah. After that, we go to supply, because like in the end, a token price is a game for supply and demand, and we look at supply, demand, sustainability. I mean, lots of you maybe heard of Axie Infinity or Olympus DAO. Like these were Ponzi schemes. So basically, the rewards that were paid out to users came from other users buying in. So at one point there wasn't enough money flowing in, and the entire system crashed. So sustainability is really big in tokenomics. And then there's classical stuff like the business model, looking at fees, revenues, how to make money, and so on. And team and investors, obviously, classic startup evaluation, technology, and history. So the history looks really at
Max,
what.
Can I interrupt you for a second? Are you sharing slides? Because I don't see any.
Oh. Yeah, I'm sharing slides.
Okay, can you try again?
I have no idea why. Okay, it's probably a Zoom issue.
Now I see the
Okay.
screen.
All right. That was a bit of a bummer. So nothing I said made sense so far, I would say.
Well, for me, it does, because I actually have a helium miner, so I'm familiar with helium, but I don't know about the rest.
Can you see something now?
Now, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Now we see.
Okay. So like I said, coordinating actors in a decentralized system through incentive. So that was literally the thing I wanted to show you, is this massive the massive helium network. I don't think the sharing works.
No, it does. I see it. I see the map, the helium map. So maybe I can say a few words. So the green dots are all the helium miners. So it works in a way that everyone can buy a little device. It looks like a router, and you put it in your home, and it starts basically functioning like a Wi-Fi device for the network. So you send signals to the network, then you share data with the network. And there are different devices that are on the Helium blockchain. For example, the scooters that you can drive around, some of them are on the Helium blockchain, and they're powered by this network. And whenever like there's any activity, you can get rewards as someone participating in this network, as a miner in this network. And maybe here a question from my side. There were quite a good rewards last year for Helium, but this year I'm not sure what they changed. I really didn't read on their Discord a lot, but they changed something in the reward system, and now I'm barely getting any rewards for my activity.
Yeah.
Clarify.
I mean,
happened.
I assume it's also because a lot of the token price was simply speculation. So I assume that a massive price drop also led to the rewards shrinking. But I took this example mainly because it's easy to understand how to coordinate people. Also, I mean, they added a new chapter, or like their focus is also now 5G networks. So I assume since they want to build 5G networks, that the amount of rewards towards 5G networks is now much stronger than just normal network coverage.
Okay.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, this was the main problem we had, was like, how do we get these four kind of user groups: hotspot providers, validators, devices, and developers coordinated to create something like this huge network map. Yeah, and then this comes out, and let's see. So the 9 dimensions, as I mentioned, and what you guys can do now, and I would just simply send a link to this, put it in the YouTube chat. I would change. Oh, okay. Share this with you, so you can also, join on the join in real life, because this is like, it's a very practical tool, and it doesn't make sense if I just explain this to you. So let me.
You can share it here on Zoom, and I'll paste it in the group.
Oh yeah, I already pasted it on YouTube.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. Exactly. So basically, this is a framework I did, and it's the light version because it's a very heavy framework.
I
but
don't
it goes,
see it, Max.
no,
I don't know
no.
if there a delay.
Yeah, there's a delay, a massive one.
Okay.
Yeah, so basically you go from first principles through analyzing the token ecosystem, and it starts with a fairly, I would say, business-centric focus. So it really looks at the main problem the project is trying to solve, why it matters. So in the case of Helium, for example, the link is in the chat.
No, it's not.
There's 2 people asking for this.
Can you send it to me here, and I'll paste it in the chat on YouTube?
Okay.
Yeah, okay, I have it. Now I'm gonna paste it on YouTube. Here, guys. Okay.
Let me check if that works. Yeah, that should work. Yeah, so basically 9 dimensions. You go through them. You're gonna see it's quite a long process. So you're not gonna finish that in 10 minutes or so. But it looks from first principle. It's like, what's the problem? Why does it matter? For example, Helium would say like something like, okay, traditional networks are very expensive. They're sometimes inadequate. They're slow, and why it matters, obviously, is like the network coverage market is 800 billion. So that would be like, okay, we're sourcing a decentralized infrastructure that is very expensive. And if they enable what they claim, this will be a hugely successful project, very big. And so after that, we're going to look at the solution the project is providing, the main value proposition of the project, So first of all, we want to understand, it's like, okay, like what's the point of this project? And I think in crypto, it's very, very important that you figure out what's the point of this. And then we also go into ratings. So what we want to do, especially as our like new on-chain cooperative, I'm going to pitch later, is like we want to give ratings why this project is good or not. So in this case, we would answer or like ask people, okay, how significant is this problem? Is the problem the project is trying to solve? How confident are you in the value proposition? And how well does the project solve the problem today? So I personally, for Helium, would go in there and say, okay, it's a very significant problem and the value proposition seems to work. However, the project there's no real business built on Helium yet. So from a purely like value proposition perspective, it's very strong solution, strong idea, but it doesn't solve the problem yet. So if you would go there and your value proposition would probably something with an average between like maybe an 8 and 8, a 3, maybe, you know, like a 12, maybe it's a 4 or something in total, probably more, or maybe a 6 or 7. That really depends on you. So after that, and you would go into the token classification, and yeah, this is it's something it's built based on a framework from the International Token Standardization Association. That's I think that's too much for today, and then you would really go into token design, look at participants, value creation, really like how is, like now that we understand the value proposition, is like how do we go into what can people do in this ecosystem? Like how do they create value? So in the case of Helium, we have people that create, you know, like they provide hotspots, they mine, they validate, they stakers, players, investors, lots of ways in which you can create value. And yeah, we would go through value creation, obviously very important. We would look at, is there actual value created? Because 2017 in the ICO craze, most of the things didn't create any value, and you could do nothing in this ecosystem. And there's the token design, where we look at incentive design and reward structures. So whatever you can do in this ecosystem, is this rewarded? Are actions punished as well? Are the rewards aligned with activities that create value? And so on. Yeah, Maria, I don't think it makes much sense if we can't talk to each other to go through the entire thing.
What do you mean, talk to each other?
So this is more, this makes most sense if you have like a discussion about different points, but this is just 30 pages and it goes on and on and on.
So the goal here is, let's say if I want to analyze a token of a project, that I can go through this framework and then analyze it, right?
Exactly.
And does it give like a result in the end?
Yes. So in the end, you get kind of like a report that that is based obviously on all the answers and the scores you give. So for example, you could look at how active, or like if you, for example, look at demand, it's not the best, but maybe we look at sustainability as like you would get a score that tells you, is there a sustainable growth flywheel? How dependent is the project return? How on new users joining and buying into the product? So if it's very dependent, then this is probably a Ponzi scheme score. So yeah, this is it's a yeah.
And who would use this framework? is it also for people who, let's say, want just to analyze tokens that they want to invest in, or is it more for professionals?
Yeah, I mean, in the best case, yes. Obviously, as an investor, you should take the time to invest in this. But this is obviously much more interesting for, I would say, asset managers, hedge funds, people that really want to understand what, or like maybe get a job as a token researcher, as a blockchain analyst, and so on.
Okay, and when you say, for example, I know that it's an upcoming job, token researcher, and of course the blockchain analyst job is already existent, but I know a lot of people that work for venture capital funds or like investment funds. They're also looking into tokens to invest. So it's great to have a framework like this, but in some cases, it's very difficult to analyze because, for example, I tried to write a paper about game tokens, so analyze game tokens. And very often, I don't really find a lot of information. Even if you read the white paper, sometimes it's very difficult to really answer all these questions. And do you have any advice on where to find this information that I need to fill out the report for?
Yeah, so for example, I mean, this is very qualitative, right? So one interesting thing you can also always do is you can go inside here and go, for example, to Token Terminal or another analytics platform. And you can go into the project you want to analyze and can check what's going on here. And so, like they, for example, provide a lot of metrics, and you can analyze and you can look at. So that's more like once the questions. One thing I would always advise is if you use the framework and you realize the information are not out there, that's a red flag for the project. Because the good projects have good tokenomics designer and they will give this information. So even a Steppen that had kind of a massive Ponzi flywheel, even they really gave out a lot of information. And this is something you can also use additionally. I mean, blockchain data, and it gets more and more accessible. It's also something, it's also something you can use. For example, in Ethereum's case, it's very interesting to just look at. Market cap is not super interesting, but maybe we look at active developers. I mean, the market broke down, but the developers kind of stayed fairly stable. Or interesting as well would be the token incentives. So this is quite interesting. Like, I'm not sure if I would say it's a correlation, but token incentives go down and the amount of active developers go down. I wouldn't say this correlates much because ETH developers don't tend to be like very mercenary behaviors, but that's kind of a thing. And for example, I think if you look at active developers and code commits, you also see, okay, obviously that correlates massively. So these are things you can use to think about, okay, is the community of an ecosystem working? For example, I mean, everybody is talking about Solana. So we could figure out, okay, let's look at Solana, like the active developers. Maybe active developers and active daily users. So what we see is like the amount of active developers, obviously, it almost halved since July. But the price, if you see active developers price, I mean the price just it just evaporated, and Solana people, the Solana community is still fairly active. So that's a very positive development. And I mean, if you look at 365 days, it's like you can see that the amount of active developers, even though the price went from like here from 150 to 10, the amount of developers stayed the same. So you could argue that Solana has a very healthy developer ecosystem, for example.
That's very interesting. So also like creating these KPIs that you can analyze. What do you think? Because actually we already have questions in the chat, but one question from my side. What are the like good KPIs to look at? For example, now this KPI price against active developers is one good KPI. What else would you suggest is a good KPI to look at?
I mean, like there's, I would say it's difficult because in blockchain ecosystem, it's much more subjective, right? If you look at the price to sales ratio of a stockbroker, for example, that's a good sign. What I really like is also I look at token incentives and daily active users, for example. And or if you, for example, LuxRare is a fairly famous NFT marketplace, and really like if you look at, for example, so I have to explain this. When they launched a token and they incentivized trading on their platform. And so they used the money from investors, mint a token, and incentivize listings, trading, and so on. What happened now was interesting because like in February, this thing just exploded, and at one day it even overtook, or like in this time period it overtook OpenSea as the NFT marketplace, and everybody was like, okay, crazy, how can this happen? They just knew. And what happened was basically this trading is all fake. So people traded with themselves to get the token reward. So what you see here is like the amount of token incentives, so native token paid to the people to do something, and the revenue. I mean, I would say it almost correlates 100%. So here, if you see such a chart, you can, and I would say the best metrics are always ratios between something. It's like you can see this is not a sustainable token ecosystem because they push tokens to incentivize something, and it's kind of stupid. Like people trade for thousands of years. Why would you incentivize trading? So people gamed this. So LuxRare was basically an economic failure because people started gaming the system, and crashing it. I mean, it's worth nothing, right? So it's always like I always want to look at incentives, growth, daily active users, and developers. So
okay.
These are just something. It also depends on, do you want to analyze a layer 1 or layer 2, or I don't know, a community like a DAO, for example. So that's really like, I don't know, in a DAO, you probably don't look at the developer ecosystem that much, or you wouldn't look at DeFi total value locked because probably there is no DeFi ecosystem built on a DAO. That makes probably no sense. So this is kind of some things,
We have 2 questions now. One of the questions is, could you recommend some analytical tools? For example, the one that you showed us is, I guess, an analytical tool, but could you recommend also others?
I think Token Terminal is the most accessible. So I just like it because it has a nice UX, and you can just, you can click through things. You can look at fees and revenues and, whatever you want. And that makes it very easy. I think, Dune Analytics is also great, but it's a lot more chaotic and much more difficult to access. And there's like usually custom made, I don't know, dashboards and block exploring pages, and like art blocks, for example, whatever it is. I don't know, like this is like an overview about stable coins. So I think Dune Analytics has really amazing views and amazing queries, but it's definitely more daunting, especially if you don't know what you look for. So everything gains network, for example, or like top NFT collections, for example. Also, this one here is pretty interesting. You can check out the biggest NFT collections, and how they're performing: low, high, medium. What's the price? I think that's pretty amazing. Other than that, yeah, I think these two are good to just explore and click around. What else is there? I don't know. Shall I answer the next question?
Yeah, there was one question before that asking, does this work? So does the framework that you showed us work for new or for existing projects? I think for existing projects, obviously because there is a lot of information, but what about like new projects that are coming up? Can we also use it for new projects?
I mean, definitely. So, I mean, like maybe LF0, for example, that was like in Berlin. Like they are fairly new blockchain, and they don't have a big ecosystem. So what you would do with the framework, you would basically read and you go into their white paper. Here's like utility and economics, for example. There's the white papers. Yeah. And you could go through, I don't know, analyzing the metrics, look at what they claim for, and then you go through the framework. And the framework is, the framework would help you structure it in a way that you can go through from A to B. I think that's the biggest thing, because like in the case of LF0, you would look at, say, okay, let me find out the participant first. And I at the moment I have no idea what the participants of LF0 are, right? I have no clue. So I would probably would go into the white paper and say, okay, I don't know. We start with the business white paper. We start with the community. Maybe we can check out the community. Not much there, and then okay, you look at the token. What's the point of the token? I mean, this is, I think, a layer 1 blockchain, but yeah. So what's the whole point of this? What's the token? How is value created in the ecosystem? Like, I personally have no clue what. Like, I assume developers should build on top of LF0, but I don't know. So the framework helps you structure it. And once if you use the framework and you go through it, you should come up with a result that you know everything about this, or like the most important things. So yeah, I mean, we also want to use it for new projects.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Next question is okay, maybe again about the tool, the framework, I guess, because the same person is asking. You mentioned that this tool is geared toward professionals in the field. How can other interested users, like a crypto investor, use this tool successfully? What do you recommend?
So I mean, you can use it since you have the link. Other than that, we also we are starting our own, let's say, DAO-like organization, and there we will have a free cohort-based course where you learn this tool, to use this tool in 8 sessions. So I will later drop a link in the script in the chat and on YouTube, and you can just join the Discord. It's going to take a while before we start, probably like a month or so. But yeah, I mean, you can learn this tool, and then you can join us and become basically a token researcher yourself. That's kind of the whole point of our research DAO, is to educate new token researchers and to also make money with reviews and scores and so on. So yeah.
Okay, very nice. We have another question. Would you please give us an actual example for a DAO, how to analyze a DAO?
For a DAO, so I assume, like, okay, so Bankless DAO, for example, is a DAO. It's a very interesting DAO because it has tons of guilds, tons of different governance structures and treasury structures. So the bankless DAO, I'm part of this, and like I can show you. It's a bit daunting, but it's this massive organization that really has like hundreds of, I think thousands of members, 30,000 members or so. That's definitely a huge organization. There's also ENS, for example. ENS is also it's the Ethereum name service. I think they have a quite big DAO that you can join.
And how could we analyze a DAO using the framework?
I mean, very simple. You look at is there a DAO token, for example? The bankless DAO they have their own token. ENS has their own token. So you would look at governance, and in the framework there is a governance part where you look at governance, and if it supports or hurts, the project. So you would basically go inside here, think about the same things. How does the DAO create value? What happens in the DAO? What's the point of the token? So in bankless DAOs, in bankless DAO's case, you have to buy 35,000 bank, which is roughly, I think, 280 or 300 euros to become part of the DAO. But other than that, it has no real value. And so you would say like, okay, it's like a token gated, but other than that, it doesn't really create any value. So as an investment, the bankless DAO token would be fairly useless. But other than that, I would say it's a great example of a DAO. Oh, my So my DAO is called the Token Research Cooperative, but it's not. I mean, it's not Aleph Zero. Aleph Zero is VC funded. That's another company.
Yeah,
yes.
we can drop a link. Oh, but wait, like you also have Tokenomics DAO. So now you're starting a new DAO. You called it the Research DAO, right? You said it's called the Research DAO.
Yeah, it's called the Token Research Cooperative.
Oh,
so
okay.
if you go, so I'm not necessarily active anymore in Tokenomics DAO. So I want to have something more focused, and so this is like the new project we're gonna start, and we're also gonna develop an educational course, and we probably also make it available to the Equalens community. So this would be
will definitely make it available to the Equalens community.
Yes, of course. Like so we will create a shared cohort-based course, and it's you will become someone that potentially can work for a bank or an institutional investor, because like we analyze and evaluate crypto tokens, and we also, like, obviously, in order to get enough more people to do this, we educate new token researchers, and it's going to be free, because that's kind of like the sense of this. A cooperative is something that's owned by its users, and you participate in the revenue if you want to become a contributor, but also the educational part is simply free to educate as much people as possible with our framework and how to use it. And I can share the Discord link. 1 second. I can share the Discord link in the chat.
Can you maybe speak a little bit about the job as token researcher and analyst? What kind of companies do need these people, such experts? How demanded is this job now with all these scams coming out in the crypto space? Apparently, we need more people that are able to analyze such projects. Can you speak a little bit about basically the job market of this profession?
I mean, it's a young profession, I would say, and I would say if you look for these jobs on LinkedIn, you will probably find something like crypto analyst or simply analyst or financial analyst, digital asset analyst. So, I mean, the jobs are quite varied. It could be from JP Morgan, Deutsche Bank, you know, our Frankfurt kind of connections, the people that work with institutionalized crypto. They are probably the biggest ones, hedge funds and so on, pure crypto funds. So these are like the jobs you can get once you know this stuff. And I think it used to be called blockchain analyst, which is now kind of like, it's way too vague, right? And it's not undefined. And now we are going from to a token researcher, at digital asset analyst. So anyone that really needs or like wants to be exposed to digital assets and wants to figure out how to analyze them is needs it. So I would say the traditional financial institutions that are moving more into crypto will definitely need these people. So and so far, correct me if I'm wrong, and if you find something else, there is no institution that does this, or like that develops and equips and educates like these token researchers.
Yeah.
So I couldn't find anything, and some people asked me, and I was like, yeah, okay, you can join us. Yeah.
So now, very exclusive to the Ecolens community that is here participating, you will get the amazing chance to participate in the one and only program for tokenomics researchers, which is the new investment banker job, by the way, as I understand. So tokenomics researchers are the future investment bankers.
Exactly, pretty much. And I would say the job will range from qualitative analysis and also quantitative. So basically analyzing metrics, combining them with qualitative business analysis. That's probably the job of the future. Yeah.
So what skills do I need to have? Do I need to be like a finance expert from the Web2 world, or what skills do I need to have to become a token researcher?
I think the probably most important thing is that you enjoy analytical thinking. Like you want to really figure out what this is about and does it make sense. So I think that's the first approach. I don't think you need to be a finance expert because it's a young field, and a lot of the traditional ways to evaluate a stock or a bond or whatever, they don't necessarily, they're not super interesting now or at the moment, because it's like you could have said like, okay, an Axie Infinity at their highest point made a ton of money and it was a great investment, but then it just crashed and you couldn't figure out why. Now you can figure out why, because it's a Ponzi scheme. So I would say it's it's much more. I think it's also, if people want to go into the space, now is a good time, because if the next bull market happens, and it will eventually happen, then you will be equipped to be one of the first people that can do this, like as a job. And I think banks are like building up their teams, and it's like it will happen that there's more digital asset analysts, and but I would say a bit of finance definitely helps as well. Like if you understand financial market, because I was never really that much into finance, and a lot of the stuff in DeFi, I was like, okay, I have no idea what they're talking about. What's a derivative? What's a future and stuff? So financial market knowledge helps, certainly.
Okay, great. People are asking for the link for the Token Research Cooperative. Can you share it here with me, and I'll share it on YouTube? Or do you have, I think you had a QR code that you showed.
Yeah, so someone already made it, so that's good. I don't know. That's annoying. Probably stop sharing and is in chat.
Okay, I'll just take it from the chat and post it here on YouTube. Perfect. Okay. Amazing. So
Do you guys have a Discord as well?
yeah, we do.
Nice.
I don't know, we have more than 1,200 members, I think. So one question from my side. Yeah, I just sent the link. Someone's asking for the link. Yeah, I just sent the link here. It's a Discord link. So you can join the Discord channel of the cooperative. And I guess you will, Max, announce on Discord when this training is starting, or what's the prerequisite to join and everything there, right?
Yes, absolutely.
But also because it's going to be offered to the Ecolens community, as we established here. And I forced Max to confirm verbally. We can also share it on our social media, so you'll know about this, guys. Okay, are there any other questions for Max here? So please, guys, write them in the chat if you have other questions. One question from my side: when's the next bull run?
Something needs to kickstart the next bull run. So I think it's not going to be the next 6 months to 1 year, probably.
Okay. Because can we somehow anticipate it by analyzing the market, by analyzing tokens? Can we somehow anticipate how the market is going?
I mean, I wish I could do it, but you know, like the last time. So I'm in this space since 2017. So where I lost money in shit coins mainly, which led to the interest in token design, but that's a different story. But now I'm like, I'm thinking about this, and I'm like, you know, after 2017, there was like 3 years of bear market, but then people built all these things like NFTs and DeFi and DAOs popped up, and everything like went crazy, and like lots of innovation happened. So like I assume the next bull market is either triggered by the macro economy going back to being nice and inflation low, but that's not going to probably end in 2023. So we just need to innovate a lot. And, you know, the NFT community needs to move away from shitty, useless PFP projects, and the DeFi community needs to move to better tokenomics, valuable DeFi tokens, better DeFi applications. I mean, unbanked people in Latin America, they just want to have a bank account, you know, a decentralized bank account where they can lend money, borrow money, not this complicated self-repaying loans kind of Ponzi stuff, like all of these stuff. I mean, refi looks interesting, but I think it's going to have the same cycle as all the others, all the other things. Like it's going to blow up by 100, like blow up, drop by 90%. A few projects going to survive, and then then crash back, and the cycle continues. So kind of like it's annoying, but if everybody can speculate on everything, like I think that's just the price you have to pay.
Do you think the Bitcoin halving next year will play a role in a new market?
I don't know. Like I'm not a big Bitcoiner, to be honest. So I'm more like I like the narrative of the flippening, so that ETH will become bigger than Bitcoin, and that ETH is going to be the ultrasound money, because obviously Bitcoin is, in a sense, I mean, it's a store of value now, but I don't think it will ever be a payment system. And also the stuff that's the DeFi that's built on Bitcoin, I also don't believe in that. I don't believe that stacks and so on will actually deliver on the Lightning Network and so on. I don't think they will make Bitcoin usable.
So maybe it's more of the Ethereum plans, you know. Now we had the merge, and then I don't know what's the next, the purge, or what's the next cycle of the Ethereum. I think they have these names. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, like, no, I'm like, whenever I try to predict, anyone tried to predict anything in the space, it like came out totally different. So, yeah.
We have one more question, and let it be the last question. I wonder if there are some comparison frameworks for different token standards.
Comparison for different token standards. So, can you compare frame? So there is only one big token standard from the ITSA. They have, so it's an association. You can draw. I mean, you can, you know, the ITSA link, right? Like,
yeah, we can drop it here in the chat.
Yeah. So they have a standard to classify tokens, but there's also the token classification framework from Untitled Inc. That's also interesting.
Can you leave it to me so I can copy it on YouTube?
I can, if I ever, So this is something you can use. It's a bit outdated, I would say, but it's still an interesting overview of like on how to classify different tokens. Yeah.
And people are asking for your Twitter handle. I don't think I follow you on Twitter. Share it.
I'm also not necessarily very active on Twitter, so you can have my LinkedIn.
All right.
I will try, obviously. I want to escape LinkedIn in the future because. So yeah, feel free to just hit me up on LinkedIn, and in the future, I might start posting more.
I'll leave the link to your LinkedIn account in Zoom.
It's already on YouTube. You can just repost it if that makes it easier.
Yeah. All right. Thanks so much, Max. We have one more question. Do you have time for one more question?
Yes.
What could be some good forums to see discussions, unbiased discussions on tokens? Any subreddits you know of?
Subreddits are not the greatest, I would say, because there's a lot of shilling of shit projects, of really, really terrible projects. But I would say there's if you really want to go deep on tokens, there's the Token Engineering Academy, there's Tokenomics DAO, which is really good. So I'm gonna just simply invite, like, I'll send some links in the YouTube chat.
I don't know if people see the links because I don't see what you're posting.
That's weird, yeah.
Can you share it on Zoom and I'll just post it on?
Okay. So it's a few Discords, and it's the Token Engineering. The Token Engineering Academy is very good.
Okay. All right.
Oh yeah, sharding. Yeah, sharding is the next. I think it's the next ETH milestone. Very good.
Yeah, but I think their names were like rhyming, like the merge and then the plurge or something like
and
this.
And the purge.
Something like this, yeah. All right. Yeah, thanks, Max, a lot for this. I think the framework looks super interesting. I would definitely try it out with the next token that I'm thinking about buying. And it's for free, or do we have to pay something if we use it?
No, it's for free. And in the future, it's also going to be on Miro and FigJam, so that it's just easier and more visual, just nicer to fill out.
Okay, very nice, very nice. Thank you so much for sharing your insights, sharing all these resources with us. There are so many resources. We'll write an article about the session, so we have everything documented and everyone can read about everything that we spoke about, and it's also going to be on YouTube. Thank you, Max, again, and thanks everyone for joining and for participating and asking questions.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Bye.